All right. Oh, amen. Hey, just like that. Just like that. So, anywho's, but Yes. So anyway, thank you for asking. We had a great time. Um, ate some great food, shopped, um, took a lift. That's kind of fun. The ride program. Yeah. I tell you, I feel kind of highfalutin when I do that. When someone else chauffeurs you. Is it wrong to think maybe I've reached a station where that might not? When Jeff and his son were gracious enough to let me ride with them to the funeral in Arkansas, I told him I could get used to that. I had a little cooler here with snacks, and the windows were tinted dark. It was pretty nice. But, huh? Yes, yeah. Sounds like we got a rat back there. No, it's Jimmy. Remember, we invited him. So my bride and I went and saw the new film Ant-Man, and I've got just a couple of observations. One is we went to a theater that we'd never been before. It was the Alamo Draft House. It's a chain of theaters. Never been to it before. It was the one that had a ticket at the time, and location wise, it was friendly. So okay, whatever. And so we get there, and we walk in, and I immediately realize, well, this place is kitschy, because all of their artwork and everything was like 50 years ago and back, movies and that kind of thing. And we go in and we sit down, and all of their commercials and stuff were 20, 30, 40 years ago. I mean, it was, and then I realized the Alamo Draft House is a movie chain for dudes. This was a dude film house. I mean, everything. I looked around and I go, oh, now I get it. It was all about dudes. And on top of that, outside of my bride, I only saw one other woman in this whole theater. It's a dude place. And let me now, that's not the best. Listen, that's not the best part of the story. It's not the best part of the story. So the movie, well, the parts that I didn't sleep through were good. I had an endless bowl of popcorn and a really delicious pizza, and I slept through enough of the movie I could go watch it again, because I'm not really sure how we got there. So that was just slept through that, and afterwards we're outside waiting for our lift, because we're high toning it, and I said, now that was a very interesting experience. I get it, okay. I mean, they're serving a very and I said, now I have to confess to you. She goes, what? I said, I've just gotten too bougie for this. She goes, what do you mean? I said, I've really gotten used to being able to put my feet up when I watch a movie. I found the ultimate dude theater, but I'm too bougie for it. I need those seats that recline and have a heater in them. And, if you order your food early, you can have it delivered at your seat. And if you really want to impress someone, let it be sitting there when you arrive and they go, oh, 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 oh. So, yeah, I realized, one, popcorn and pizza makes me sleep through the movie, and I'm too bougie for a theater whose feet don't recline. So there you go. Those are some things we learned on our anniversary trip. So anyway, I am so ridiculous. Anyway, all right, well, let's get on with it. It's good to see you. Glad that you're here. Beautiful day today. I heard it rained. I didn't hear it. I slept right through it. I heard it was pretty rumbly tumbly. Yeah, so I missed that. I woke up and go, oh, it looks like it rained. So anyway, I'm sorry. I understand what you're saying. Now, are you bougie? Do you have a stick to chase the spiders out? See, some of you aren't quite sure what we're talking about here. Or do you have one of those newfangled ones that's all plastic and it just... So anyway, I remember the first time I got sent to an outhouse. And I was only about 10. And there was a real genuine fear of maybe falling. Still scarred by it. Anywho, but it's good to see you guys. Thanks for being here. And we'll go ahead and get started. Please remember, all of our wonderful friends and family we're praying for. Chuck's doing it good. I think Chuck is teaching online tonight. I think from his bed, maybe. I don't know. So his bed of affliction. Now, wouldn't that be a biblical story? And then his friends lowered him in through the hole in the ceiling while he was watching Netflix. Anywho, so, and I am. I had a great. I am. I just, had a great trip, and so, and we want to remember Cassie and her family. Saturday, they'll be having service for their for her grandmother. So, so let's begin first. Are there any questions or comments that you might have from our sermon series that we've just completed? Was there anything that stood out to you in the study of that encounter? Was there anything that stood out? Or the story? I mean, yeah, that's what I taught for the last 4 weeks. So.
I always like the idea of Jesus not condemning her and then sending her to go sin.
Okay.
Instead of, hey, if you don't sin anymore, I won't condemn you. But I like the order. Like, I don't
Okay.
That always resonates with me. I don't know if that's just me.
Okay.
I like that.
Okay. Christ always extends grace and mercy. And, it's so interesting is if you look at the biblical accounts, the majority of people understand that they're on the wrong side of sin in front of Jesus. Very few people have to be, I hate to use the word convinced, but convinced of their sins. And it's interesting to me that almost everyone I've ever talked to understand their inefficiencies. They understand that I always say this, listen, I can't live up to my own expectations. I don't always live up to the expectations of the people that love me. And so if I can't live up to mine, and I can't live up to the people who love me, and I can't always live up to the strangers' expectations of me, then there seems to be a natural that I can't live up to the expectations of a holy God. And that failure is sin. And so there's a correlation there. But there's always that grace and that mercy. And, the Bible says that he didn't come into the world to condemn it. Why? Because it was already condemned. And so for him, to pile on, if you want to use that phrase, I don't care for it, but it's an idea. The lady at the well, she knew there were things in her life that shouldn't be there. There were decisions in her life that shouldn't be there. And there were consequences in her life that she didn't like. She knew all those things. And so Jesus didn't remind her of what she had done. He was indicating to her his knowledge and authority. And that's very interesting. Did I give you one of these? Oh, no? So I am trying to discern. I think I will be giving up sugar for Lent. So this might be the last night for you guys getting into these for a while. Huh? Yes. We did have that conversation, but sometimes the choice of others spill into our lives. Well, we'll see. You'll have to come back next week to see. Cookies? All right. All right. So any others? Yes, ma'am. Mm. Mm. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to see if I can get it to you without hitting your mom in the eye. But she is wearing safety glasses. When I saw that painting, I love that painting and the way the artist rendered it. It was so good. It was a beautiful painting to begin with, but this instrument that was so instrumental, hey, and her ponderance on that, and she left it there, and thank you very much, because I was really hoping to highlight that because it really spoke to me. Any other insights? Yeah. That is correct. Yes. So she was the first non-disciple to be told this declaration. Yeah, or a half Jew. Yeah. So let me ask you this: what does that say to you? I mean, why do you? No, she was not. Well, she probably, whether she identified him as a rabbi or not, we might could discuss that. Yeah, but the the items that you wear can be very distinctive, and it could have. So whether she saw him as rabbi, I I can't. I'd have to dig a little deeper before I would go yes. But when Jesus spoke to her and the way in which he spoke to her, she did arrive quickly at prophet. Yes, he did know her. He knew her. And this was before social media, so he didn't go and stalk her or something. He was speaking things. Now, in my humble sanctified imagination, when we look at the encounter where Jesus was ministering to the woman caught in adultery, and it says he reached down and started writing in the dirt. In my humble opinion, I think he may have been writing the transgressions, the sins of those holding the stones. There's a lot of academic discussion on what he was doing, because we don't see him address them. We're not given that, but somehow there was a communication. And so, if he kneels down and it's Jimmy Vaughn and he puts my sin in the dirt, that's going to change my attitude. So I'm not sure I would see. There's 1,001 things. What name or what did he say to her that immediately, when you say the name of a person who was once your husband, man, it really, and she had to have been on the way somewhere to get to the idea of prophet, because that's not something you just give away, and that's not a title that you just claim. Because in the old days, if you claimed prophet and your prophecy didn't come true, it was a dead-end job for you. I am cooking with propane tonight. All right, any other thoughts, insights? Yes, sir. Ostracized. Oh, Ronnie. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Anybody? Yeah. 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 Right. Yes. So one of the things we see sometimes, and I would love to have heard the side talk, is inside his group of disciples. What was the side chatter? Yeah. What is? Geez, man, we could go if we went to the West Road, then at least we could hang out at the beach a little while. Have a little BBQ. If we go the East Road, at least we're down in the valley where there's lush, and we might even could take a swim. But no, he's going to take us through Samaria where it's hot and dusty, And now we're going to be ceremonially unclean.
We don't like them people anyway.
Yeah, I only half like them. Get it? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good one, Chair. To me, it speaks on his authority because, the Muslims give us a hard time when they say things like Jesus.
Uh-huh.
I think that whenever you are God, saying it is not always necessary. I think that it speaks on his authority that she was so quick to become a prophet because just of his
Mhm.
presence, his authority, his power.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. That there is truth in that. Yeah. And our friends the Muslims, they disclaim. Anyway, so let's look real quickly at the departure from the well. The lady's departure gave us some very clear indications. One, the purpose for her being there. When she left the water jar, the water was the reason she came, and the jar was the instrument, the provision for her need. If she was thirsty when she walked out there, she's going to be still thirsty walking in physically. And then, and this was the one I really found myself pondering on, is the persistent reminder of her condition. Every time she picked up that water jug, it reminded her of who she was, where she was, what was, all those things. And sometimes as believers, we can have those things in our lives, especially as young believers. As a young believer, there were things in my life that were a reminder of the man that I used to be. And, you have to kind of process through those things a little bit. Now, in my humble opinion, you don't want to process so far that you forget what it was like to be lost. I think that's a great tragedy for many believers, is you forget what it was like to be on the outside looking in. I tell the story often enough, and I think about it more than enough, is the times I would just sit and weep as a 21-year-old man because I was so alone. I and listen to Christian music while I was doing it. I was so lost. And I don't want to ever forget what that's like. Because there's a world out there that are wrestling with some of the very same things that I did. And I was just that close, but I was just that far. And so we see this lady, and that painting was so phenomenal. She's looking at this small, quite honestly, insignificant piece of pottery, but it had such a huge significance for her on so many levels.
What about this? In fact, if she's such an outcast, who is she going to tell anyone? They don't even listen to her because women didn't have a high priority.
See, I mean, she had so many strikes against her. Mm-hmm. And I love the way the artist rendered it, because she's looking at the jug, and that reminds her of all of her needs. And then over here, we see the apostles coming up, the disciples coming up, and then behind her, you can see the city. And I think back to the day I gave my life to Christ, and I sat on, let me look, I was right side, 3/4 of the way back, about halfway in the pew there. And the invitation was given. Listen, Jesus was all over me like a cheap suit way before we even got to the sermon. Because my bride's song, Give Your Heart a Home, that's all Jesus needed in my life. That's all I heard. Jimmy, you've given your heart to everything else. And this is where you are. This is how you feel. This is what you've produced. Give your heart a home. You've given it to everything else. That, like I said, that sermon that day, I never heard. Didn't hear a word of it. And Brother Dew would give you plenty of it. And then the invitation come, and I say this with all affection. Listen, you were going to get 5 or 6 stanzas on a good day, because he was going to give you plenty of time to think about it. And I white knuckled through that thing, because you know what? I was like that lady looking at that jug. One, I didn't I didn't know. I knew what I was, but I wasn't sure what we were talking about here, and man, and that's why I sat in that pew or stood until everyone left. I was literally the last person out of the building, because up until then I'm still looking at that jug and I'm thinking, but it's so powerful as she wrestled with these feelings, these truths, and what are you going to do with it? We could be presented truth, but we still have the responsibility of what we're going to do with it. And, we can give truth to the world when it comes to biblical truth, but they still have the responsibility and the privilege of deciding what they're going to do with it. So what are some of the challenges about leaving things to pursue Jesus? For this lady, she, the jug was a picture of more than just a jug. What are some of the challenges that may be faced and what's left in our decision to pursue Jesus? I don't know, maybe in your world, was there something? Yeah. Livelihood. Yeah, there are some things you just can't do if you're going to follow Jesus. Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. Sure. Oh, I have no doubt. Given the back history that we do know, if someone's looking for a reason, yeah, I mean, possible, sure. And and then, so here's the thing: is how would you? We'll wait. What did he say? What? Yeah. Yeah. So here's the thing. How would you like to be this lady, given the circumstances she was in, and she comes running in from the well? Hey, I was at the well with a man by myself. Oh, yeah. 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 Now, how about this? Now, this is just for fun. If you just want to sit around and let your mind rest a little bit. She runs into the town. Hey, I met this Jewish prophet. It told me. And the disciples are over here, hey man, how much for this apple? And they go, is that guy with you? And they go, oh yeah, that's our rabbi. Well, do you know who she is? Now that's free. Anyway, so, but what are some other things? What are some other things that we or someone may have to decide on whether they're willing to leave it behind to pursue Jesus? Relationships, and that can be really hard. Jobs, vocations, habits, preferences. Can we all agree sin's pretty fun for a season? Right? I mean, come on. Listen, if sin didn't have any fun to it at all, no one would ever do it. That's the reason, you're not ever fighting your children over, frosted mini wheats. When I was growing up, that's what my dad always ate, was frosted mini wheats. He said he liked them. I think it was just because he knew we kids wouldn't eat them. But either way, he's intelligent. Friends. I had a lot of friends in low places. It's a great song, by the way. Had a lot of friends in low places. And when I decided to pursue Jesus now, yeah, I didn't get phone calls no more. Man, I thought I was living on an island until I decided to pursue Jesus. And not only was I living on an island, I wasn't even on an island. They were, yeah. Part of the challenges we need to remember, brothers and sisters, is this, is as we're sharing our faith and we're inviting people to come and see and to meet Jesus, is the price to pursue Jesus isn't free. Now, in America, you're not going to get stoned to death for doing it. You're not going to get put out behind the family house like my translator in Central America did. to live in a lean-to because your family had a funeral for you because you followed Christ. To them, you're dead. We don't have those things. We have religious freedom in America, but here there are still choices to make. If you grew up in a family and all they ever talked about church was bad, imagine going home for Christmas then. We have to be careful. You and I made our choices, and we've continued to make our choices. But we can also agree that the closer we walk to Jesus, the easier some of those choices are. These are people who are fresh. These are people who are counting the cost. Man, if I choose Jesus, how many times you've been told, listen, I just don't think I'm good enough. Well, you're right. You're not. I don't know if I can do it. You're right. You can't. It's Christ in us and through us that does it, yeah? So we always have to be very mindful that we don't oversimplify the price of the choice. Uh-huh. Yes, that's correct. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yes. I mean, there are places in the world that your public profession of faith can. Yeah. And see, we don't understand that. It's so. All right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's interesting because, yes, I confer what you're saying is, yes, in that moment, our faith is the smallest of seeds, but in that moment also it's the greatest because, it's an oxymoron almost. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. And if I'm just being transparent, the day I got saved, let's say that we'll just divide that decision into threes, right? Thirds, math. Look at me. 1/3 was I didn't want to go to hell. That's a really good reason to know Jesus. The second reason was this: is everything I had done up to that point. And the third was, here was this man who said he loved me and said that if I followed him, he could make my life different. And, yes, I grew up in church. Yes, I grew up in Sunday school. Yes, I grew up going to VBS. Yes, I grew up going to youth camp. And I thank God for all those things. But I still had just a seed of faith. I didn't walk into that with this great big, I'm so thankful. Just so thankful. So let's take a real quick look here. It was mentioned earlier. We saw a change of provision. The physical thirst that had drawn her to the well had been forgotten as she was being quenched, her spiritual thirst. And that is so true. We thirst. We are thirsty people. In my humble opinion, from the moment sin touched creation, we were thirsty. And we're going to pursue the meeting of that thirst somewhere. And, it's like we did talk about Sunday, is that, a thirst that we're trying to meet can cause us to make a lot of choices. It's career, or relationship, or addiction. We have a thirst in our souls. And we're going to seek to pursue those. We're going to seek to answer those. But like the old hymn says, man, when we finally see Jesus for he is, and we just take that step, and God begins to pour that living water into us, it's an amazing thing. Now, here's the thing. Okay, this may be my closing illustration for tonight. I got so much more. Anyway, if you'll imagine our spiritual lives like a oil lamp. Give me oil for my lamp. Keep me burning. Anyone ever know that one? No. Give me gas for my Ford. Keep me trucking for the Lord. No. I don't even know if you're saved. But if you've got that oil lamp, right? It's got a purpose. And it's a very simple thing. You have the well, you have the wick, you have the little device that rolls the wick up and down. You have the globe. It's simple. You put oil in the lamp. The wick soaks up the oil. You put a light to the end of the wick, and it burns and it produces light. And that wick will be consumed very, very slowly as long as there's oil in the lamp. Now, you can let that oil reach empty. It'll still burn. Why? Because there's oil in the wick. There's a residue. Now, what you fill that well with is very important. Because if you go in there and you get milk and pour it in, guess what? No bueno. If you go in and you get a bottle of water, even if it's Fiji water, no bueno. You can go into your kitchen and fill that well with anything else other than that oil, no bueno. It matters what you fill it with. If you fail to fill it properly, in time, that light will consume the oil in the wick and in short order consume the wick itself. And when the well is dry and the wick is dry and has been consumed by fire, there's no more light. The challenge that we face as Christians is this. We have a thirst that will not be utterly and eternally quenched until we stand in glory. And if we don't intentionally fill that well with the proper designed ingredients, in time, we can lose our passion, we can lose our light, we can lose that. That's why it's so important that we continue to pour into ourselves through worship, through study, through service. It pours into us, and that keeps us healthy. And for a believer who finds themselves, the well gets a little shallow, a little dry, and they go out there, and you know what? It's like this. Has anyone here completely forgotten how to sin? Now, Catherine, I don't know. Were you just a saint as a child? No, I always thought you were. Thanks for dispelling that myth. But as long as I've known you, I've always thought, I bet you growing up, because, you're a musician and your parents are cool. And, I really did. I really have. But now, no, I guess not. But we're all sinners, right? Has anyone forgotten how to do the things that you no longer choose to do? I haven't forgotten how to do it. I still know how to do it. I still even know where to go and do it. In fact, I don't even have to leave my home. But the reason I don't choose that is because it never satisfied me in the past. And it's the devil's lie that it would satisfy me today. One of the greatest tragedies for a sinner is this. When you meet Jesus, sin just isn't as good as it used to be. You don't enjoy doing it, and guess what? God's going to lovingly hold us to account. I don't like it when I fail. I don't like it when I sin. It's appalling to me, and especially if I've sinned the same way twice. Yeah, so some time ago, I was in a circumstance, and I didn't say anything. I didn't use profanity or anything like that. It would just have been better had I been quiet. Okay, I did. It was just a conversation that I would have been better served, and they would have been better served to be quiet. And someone after that was very kind and meant, and the Lord had already started speaking to me about it. And I said, you're right. I should have it'd have been better. Huh? Oh, no, there's never a good time to be quiet at a hockey game. Well, several months go by, and I'm in a very similar circumstance. And I did it again. And what's even worse about this one was I wasn't even really going to go there physically to this thing. And I wasn't really invited. I was welcomed, but not invited. That's a whole different story. But I made the decision and I went. And, they're like, oh, it's good to see you, blah, blah, blah. And then, and the same person from the first time. And I had to repent. And I'm just going to tell you this. I'll not go back there a third time. Because the first time was bad. The second time was miserable. All right. To the digital church, we love you guys. Thanks for being there. We hope to see you Sunday.